We primarily work in the health sector, and our biggest customer is the Ministry of Health in Kuwait. And as a company, we execute turnkey projects, and the Ministry of Health looks at us to more or less provision everything related to the technologies they have inside their hospitals. Repetitively, we kept hitting the wall with limitations and blockers in delivering what the customer wanted. Because, we had a lot of these shadow ITs across the company, and even in the other business units, they did not want to come to IT to solve these problems because we took too much time, we were too expensive, and we would never understood what they're talking about. So they are better off doing it themselves. So at the end of the day, we felt that we were left out of the business instead of us helping them. It was mostly a very expensive learning experience into under-delivering or failing at times. So we needed to change the rules of the game, as they say. We needed to attack this from a different perspective.
We have 6 main companies that are I guess, our mainstay. And one of the challenges we have, which is very similar to what Omar was saying, is that we had all these silos of development going on, .NET, Java, PHP. The same thing, I mean, basically IT is just not delivering. And I think one of the key fundamental things is quality. I mean, we weren't delivering what the business wanted, but primarily we weren't delivering quality. And we were delivering it in a time frame which just didn't make any sense. We have a goal of 200 applications specifically for the environment. And how do you build that many applications in the time frame that we need to build them?
IT have been the biggest protectors of Big Blue, because you could never get fired for going with Big Blue, but then your internal audience, your internal customer are not going to use you if you can't actually deliver. So it's a great paradox that you face.
True. But the problem is that you never really had an option. I mean, at the end of the day, you needed to deliver, and when you get the Oracles and the IBMs present for you these complex structures with these complex stacks, and basically why? Because you need to deliver at a certain complexity and integration and functionality, and you really don't have another option, of course, until we came across OutSystems that managed to abstract a lot of the DevOps and provide that kind of gratification and speed to delivery. Before that, you had to just listen in and you had to accept what was offered. But now you do have an option, and you do have a reference point to demand better quality, to say the least, or better way of doing business.
The revenue streams are based on a high degree of professional services, and that's a big component, and so they thrive on complexity. And so if they can be disintermediated, they're going to have a hard time. So they're either going to have to buy companies like OutSystems, or they're going to have to develop technologies like OutSystems. People who innovate, you're always going to put these big companies on their heels. I was with Sun Microsystems for 19 years, and if anybody had told me Sun was going to disappear, I wouldn't have believed them. Remember, they created Java, they made Java, and yet they're gone. Right? They made bad strategic decisions.
The biggest challenge which was really overcome with OutSystems, is the fact that there are so many tools. And I mean, I was an absolute skeptic of OutSystems, and I basically was about to cancel the contract when I joined, because I personally didn't believe all the stories that were being told.
It was hard.
it was like some sort of Disney movie or something.
Voodoo.
So anyway, the guys are trying to convince me, and my friend Ben down here is trying to convince me that he spent enough time actually evaluating the system. If you take a lot of these technologies, they seem to go down this deep, dark hole of proprietary, and they want you to join this new proprietary platform that's completely unique to their vision of how technology should be cobbled together, if you like. I think an example would be Salesforce, where they've gone down, a proprietary language, which was very, very appropriate when they originally built Salesforce. Today, it's just not appropriate when you're talking about, trying to engage, developers, and particularly in our case, when you've got a CEO who wants 200 applications built, where do you find that sort of manpower to build that quickly? And with OutSystems, we can literally take people, fresh grads, we can put them through the boot camp. We can add additional skills to teach them about database technologies and some of the other things, and we can have them productive very, very quickly. It's very, very difficult to do that on some of the other proprietary platforms that are out there.
One of the things I did when I took over was basically, I'm a big believer in open source. Obviously, I'm a big believer in OutSystems. I'm a big believer in simplification of development. Depending on the project, I'm a big fan of Agile. The customers I talked about, their imperative was time to market. There was a certain amount of functionality they needed, and they were of the same customer type. We want it now. We want it yesterday, in fact. And so we were lucky enough to make good choices in technology between the open source underlying platform and you guys. We had your professional services who were very experienced. We used some of our own, so the buddy system of training between your professional services and our people. In that one case, it was a marriage made in heaven, and we were able to do a great job for Volksbank in particular.
There was one particular instance where we had a project that had run for about 18 months. Three very, what I would say, pretty talented Java people. And typical, project where they initially, obviously, at some point in time, talked to the users, and at some point in time, they lost their way. And the end of the day, 18 months later, the product was about to go live, and they found that it probably was never going to actually work in real life. So obviously coming in from the outside and evaluating the projects that have gone on in the company and the time that people have spent on projects and the people involved in the project, the lead of that particular project initially didn't seem very cooperative, and I basically put him on my hit list. It probably wasn't going to work out in the new world I was trying to create, remembering that when I was trying to take all these silos of people and bring them in and make them a family, so a family of developers, which is hard enough when you've got PHP and Java and .NET, but trying to make them all cooperate. So we did encourage them to self-learn, and they'd seen some of their colleagues go through the OutSystems boot camp and some of the things that were produced. So I went up there one day, and the guy came over to me and said, look what I've built. And I said, what do you mean what you built? He said, I've rebuilt the system, and I've talked to the users, and everybody's happy that it's going to do what we need. And I rebuilt it in OutSystems. And I'm going, when did you use OutSystems? I mean, he said, I learned it myself. The guys gave me the links. I looked at the videos, and I started rebuilding the system. And I said, well, how long does it take? And he said, 2 months. And I said, did you bring the team in? No, just myself.
So what was the original team? How big was it?
3 people, 18 months. 3 very senior developers. So he had basically rebuilt this product in that 2-month period. He'd already got most of the sign-off from the audit department, which is a challenge in its own right, and he's a very happy camper.
We turned around the business because of the relationship with OutSystems, so I can't be happier.